Yes, here we go. It is Thursday night. It is the T.N.F time. Obviously, we've been a wee bit quieter on the bus. I promise you, as the season begins, football matches start, maybe some like first team signings as well. There might be a wee bit more activity right now. Just enjoying the summer, but we're always pretty regularly scheduled for when the judge shows up on that bus, because the T.N.F has been the sort of poster boy show of the channel for the last 3 years. Yeah. Mark, great to have you on, as always, on a Thursday. How the devil are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thanks, boys. To yourself, how's things, mate?
Yes, good, mate, good. Just the hair's growing out a wee bit. I'm feeling a wee bit more old school tonight, mate. It feels like I'm a wee bit getting closer to being what was it described as, my mum's attic? You know, I hope my mum never heard anyone describe it as that. She'd be pretty pissed off, you know what I mean?
Can I get some of
you?
you? I'm getting a bit of a body patch here, mate.
Are you?
Oh,
well, mate, I can recommend a day of torture in Turkey. I'm sure there's many Celtic fans who go, get a Just Giving Me page set up and I'll fucking contribute towards the judge getting battered black and blue.
Aye, of course. No coming back.
No. I remember like sitting there that day, like, well, obviously getting an absolute bleaching. Like, the anaesthetics is the sorest thing in the world. And I just thought of like so many folk, probably in the Celtics podcast sphere, probably in any walk of life that know me at all. There's been a few folk going, I don't know why, but I'm in a great mood today. Birds are singing in the trees. The sun is shining.
Something happened.
There was something happening, But if you're looking to do that, Mark, then I can certainly give you some recommendations, mate.
Yes.
I'm not saying it'll knock sense into you, but it definitely finds out if you've got testicular fortitude. That is for sure, because
yes,
I'd imagine a few folk have quit
halfway
midway through that. Definitely, mate. Like,
was it that bad? Aye.
So I remember I went in with an iPad, right? A tablet, thinking I'll just like lay back, watch a couple of films while they're doing their shit. I've had loads of tattoos and that. I can do this shit. They laughed when I had the tablet, took it off me and put it to the side. I was like, what? I lay down forward. There's two sweetest girls as well, nurseries, and they were just like, I lay down forward and see that first jab. Remember the anaesthetics to numb the pain of the actual procedure.
Uh-huh.
So how bad must the procedure be if this is the numbing process? See the first jab, mate. I was like, thank fuck I was face down, like tears, like I was like, oh. And they've got to do that like right round the back of your head. Then they've got to like drill in and extract like the follicles. But obviously, like your head turns into like it feels like it's that size. See when they're doing those jabs, mate, they've got to like pierce a hole before they can do the jab. It felt like it was like a penknife. That one, it was a weird agony, mate. Like agony. I swear, I wouldn't do that with a hangover anyway. If you think you sweat on a ghost train on Sunday night after a heavy weekend, that's the most I've sweated in my life lying in a bed. Trust me. Anyway, enough of that shit. PieSports.com, 12.5% off, tasty pastry treat using the code BUS1888. Please remember as well, do hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed, hit the fucking bell, because as much as the T.N.F is as scheduled as possible on the bus, I've got to say, the nature of the scheduling of the shows will be sporadic, unpredictable, but hopefully plentiful come the new season. Once, as I say, we've got more to talk about, and therefore, if you hit the bell, you'll get a wee notification so you don't miss the bus when it's live. Mark, Como Cup time tonight. There'll be a lot of Celtic fans treating this as a bit of a derby match because it's Ajax, and you know I made the fateful mistake of seeing an Ajax zippy Not thinking as usual, just because I don't fight outside the Blue Lagoon. You know, like I've never done that. I'm just a Celtic fan who watches it mainly on a screen. Yep, don't go to games. And I just thought it looked like an absolute belter. A couple of different coloured stripes. Wore that once. I've seen it even on Twitter, mate. In the last 6 months, someone commented saying that's that prick who wore the Ajax top on his channel. I was like, I didn't realise. I mean, even now, like the cat just tuts if I put it on. So I didn't worry anyone. I don't wear it, but it's treated as a bit of a derby because of some nonsense between the fan groups. What do you make of? Nice place to play football. Decent competition tonight, as was Newcastle at the weekend, and of course we could talk about that, the 4-0 win as well. But Ajax away from our home, not at theirs, but away from home as such, should be another very good measuring stick type fixture. And I think these are really important for Celtic, Matt. I think last year playing Man City, playing Chelsea was really beneficial to our cause. It was interesting hearing Brendan say that last year, I think it was the most goals Celtic had scored in a one season for 50 years. So there was a lot of pluses for last year. As I said to you last week, I think we microcosm any sort of draw, defeat way more than maybe back in the day. We're innocent of that, of course. But I do believe one of the main key components of us starting the season with such a bang last year was the competitive nature, the fierce opposition that we had in pre-season. And I think playing Premier League outfit Newcastle, yes, we're a bit rusty, but notwithstanding that, going into an Ajax in Italy, I think these are the sort of fixtures that will stand us in good stead for a start of the season that, let's be honest, carries 10 times more pressure than last one. Now, we could say that about every game with Celtic, but as we've discussed many times in the T.N.F, the Champions League playoffs, of course, are looming. These fixtures are crucial, aren't they?
I totally agree with you. I think last year's pre-season was perfect. I think the Man City and Chelsea game in particular, I thought it was a high level opposition at the right time of Celtic's pre-season. And I think the Newcastle game probably fitted into that category. I think the other games were a bit weird. You know, I did question how Celtic set up their pre-season this year, but it's beginning to swing now. I think Ajax tonight and maybe Como on Sunday or Saturday. It depends if we win tonight, who we play next. I think that's the case. But again, it's tough fixtures, you know what I mean? And I think the physical nature of the Newcastle game is probably what Brendan Rodgers was looking for more, you know, because it was Newcastle's second game into the pre-season, so they weren't going to be rusty, but the physical nature, the size of these guys, the strength of these guys, we're going to come up against that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's something that Celtic can't afford to install into the club is a lot of physical athletes, you know what I mean? You've got to have the ability on the park as well, but I think we could be looking for that strong, more Scott Brown figures and more maybe, dare I say it, Bobo Baldi's at the back, you know what I mean? Somebody who's maybe not going to, I don't know, I still want to play for the back, but physicality I think is lacking at Celtic, and I think games like Newcastle, it shows you where you're at in terms of like the midfield especially. I thought Carl McGregor ran the show in midfield. I think he was brilliant in that match, surprisingly. Looked at the size of the guys he's up against, he just kind of slid through them, but sorry about that. But I thought it was a great match for Celtic.
That's his first lawyer notification saying,
it'll be
the solicitor. He's actually now got an attorney now who just watches the show live and just updates him when he's crossing that line. The amount of letters I'm getting through the door right now is unbelievable in the bus, you know what I mean? But we're just ripping them up. Don't you worry about
that. But you referenced Brendan Rodgers' press conference earlier on. I thought something was quite interesting, you know, and I thought there was a wee kind of barb as well when he was asked by one of the Italian journalists, like, you dominate so much. I mean, how do you do it? And he's like, well, we didn't dominate last year. We only won 2 out of 3. And I thought that's big talk for a manager. You know what I mean? To suggest that only 2 trophies out of 3 isn't where we want to be just shows you.
Satire involved. Satire involved maybe as well. A wee bit going.
Maybe a wee bit.
Well, you'd be shocked if you came over here. You know.
Maybe a wee message to you that winning 2 out of 3 at Celtic, in his opinion, just isn't enough. I do think
McGregor.
I think McGregor would have took weeks to get over that cup final defeat. Probably longer than it took me and you to get over it, Bhoycie. You know what I mean? And I think Brendan Rodgers would have been the same. I think you're going to get this level of commitment to perfection as to Brendan Rodgers until the day he leaves. You know what I mean? I think he's methodical that way, and I think that question, and I think he did a wee barb as well at the club a wee bit, or the board as such, when he was like, you can't stand still at Celtic, else you go backwards. And I thought, I like that statement. You know, I mean, whether it happens or not, at least we know that he's on the same page as some of us in terms of we can't just rest on our laurels and expect things to come our way. And I don't think the captain feels that way either. So just to quickly answer your question that you gave me, I think this type of fixture, this close to the season starting and this close to the European game starting, I think it's exactly what Celtic should be doing at this time in the window, at this time in the season.
No, definitely. And I think it's these opportunities that Brendan's got to take. They could have a multitude of reasons. And again, that old pattern we've used many times in the bus, everything he says does tend to have a layer or two or three of meanings. And I wonder if there's a bit of him almost going, you know, you'd be fucking shocked, mate. I'm telling you, 2-3 is that dominating. You want to see the reaction by losing a cup fight. You want to see the reaction to drawing at Tannadice and still having a cushion at the top of the league. There might be a bit of that. There's also maybe that inner, oh no, like that's what we're here to do. You know, 2 out of 3. I'm hungry for making sure it's just trebles only, 3 out of 3 trophies. But the reason I lean to the prior mark is because of that quote I just gave you before I let you come in. And that was, of course, reminders of records. Now, remember I said 2024, in terms of the record breaking that Celtic did, is that as a calendar year, not one season, but a calendar year, was actually sensational. 2 defeats the whole calendar year.
Yeah.
You know, that's unbelievable when you look back. Like, that is unbelievable stuff, which I think doesn't get noted. I think history will be very kind to that record, maybe not in the here and now. And then he's, of course, will be conscious that there was more games lost in the last season, and therefore we've lost more in this calendar year. I think more than double already. You know, but by May, we'd lost more than double that we had the calendar year before. But he's keen to get another record out. You know, in the 24-25 season, there was Celtic, a 50-year record beaten in terms of goals scored in all competitions. And I think when you hear stuff like that, that sounds like the defensive Brendan, which I like. See, I don't mind someone getting out there and almost slapping down facts whilst bigging yourself up in a way. There's nothing wrong with being confident in your abilities, particularly when you've got facts and stats to back them up, and trophies, of course, as well. And I think what was the other record that was really interesting was it was the first time, was it 3 players with 20 goals and up in a single season? I couldn't believe Larsson, Hartson and Sutton hadn't had that, and you would be forgiven for thinking they had.
I was quite surprised myself, mate.
And again, that's testament to then how the team's been rotated, how players been utilised, and the attacking nature of the squad that's been laid out. Albeit, remember, Ange Ball's meant to have all these records. And this isn't, I did get close to Cogley, by the way, for once, right? But it's not. But you would think, oh, we'd have had 3 over 20 under Ange. Most goals scored in a single season recently. If you think about that electric football, as it's always, that would have been Ange. And I just wonder if Brendan is keen to just remind people of, the party he has brought to the table in terms of, you've had a record-breaking calendar year, loads of records smashed in 2024. Then last season, we actually won the league by 17 points last year. Obviously, the focus will be in the derby games now because that suits the narrative better. But we actually scored more goals as well, So there's another, as I think it was Martin Nisbet in the chat, I look forward to another tedious title. And I think there is a bit of that.
Wow.
He used the media differently as well, Matt, because he obviously speaks to then the written media. And I often find that there's a different tone when that goes on. Now, is that creative license on behalf of the journalist? But when they put a quotation mark, then it has to be sort of legit. And he does sound like he's been a wee bit more forceful with the written press about his message for attacking options to be strengthened than maybe what he seems at pressers. I like the fact as well, he obviously said with Yamada, he likes the profile of the player. He ticks the boxes in the type of player that we like, I think was his words. But he feels it's still potential work in progress. However, he accepted with Inamura, he says he was brought in to maybe he's only played for a year in his career, We thought we'd get him in with the first team, consider a loan. However, he's really impressed them so far. And I think that was it. I love the fact he concedes that. That's a big climb down from his initial sort of reaction to it, Mark. That's a manager. See, if you can't change your mind, then you have a simple one. That is the power. Like, that is, if you cannot change your mind, then it is a very, very simple one. And I like the fact that he's publicly changed on that. But as I say, I do think the tones are slightly more forceful with the written media that, hey, we're still looking for strengthening here, big time. Albeit the Inamura one, I'm conceding publicly, which probably doesn't play to the script if you are trying to get the club to invest more, that, hey, that one actually might have worked. Because if you say that publicly, you could allow Celtic then, Mark, to, do you know what I mean? Go, hey, look, the last 200 grand player we got, you know, there's more of that to come. He's conceding that, but at the same time saying, look, but I still want more. The transfer deadline, many people think, is 6 weeks away. Mark, I would say effectively, if you want a player to be ready for the Champions League playoffs, which I consider the most important fixtures, as do you, in years for Celtic, then I think realistically we're looking at about 2 weeks we've got to really put the foot down on. And I concede development signings are essential each summer. I concede that is the purpose of paying for a scouting network and having faith and trust in them. And I concede that the manager's judgment may even be surprised at times and welcoming to surprise additions from said department that have caught his eye. That's brilliant. I think now it's time for the nitty-gritty with a view on the Champions League fixtures in terms of recruitment. And it has to be sooner rather than later.
Well, you're spot on. Of course, I think you're spot on there. You've got to be respectful for the competition. I think you've said that a couple of times, and you've got to bring your A game to that competition, Bhoycie, and that means bringing players in early enough to give them the head start. We spoke about Kuhn last year and the benefits that Kuhn had of a pre-season under Rodgers. Ida, I think, maybe suffered a wee bit for not getting a proper pre-season and potentially Engels, hokey, I knew where he was going to come to Celtic. Probably affected his pre-season. You've got to take some of the, I mean, there's a lot of players that are in limbo this time of year. They don't know whether they're staying at the club, whether they're moving on. So they're kind of, they're in the halfway house. And so they should be getting these players in early enough that these pre-seasons that we just spoke about being so important to Celtic getting that momentum for the start of the season, these guys should be in at least this stage to at least fit into the system, make mistakes in the system, and when it's not really a big deal, and then kick on at the Champions League qualifiers. And Bhoycie, you mentioned is the season starts in 2 weeks' time. I think that's probably the Mirren game. You should have players in by then, because a matter of days later, you've got Ibrox coming up as well. You've got Ibrox in the Champions League qualifier, all within a space of a couple of weeks each other, and it's all within the first month of the season. We've got to lay a marker down in the league. We've got to also lay a marker down in the first leg of the qualifying round. You know what I mean? We've got to, whether it's away or whether it's home, Celtic need to lay a marker down there, boys. You know what I mean? And that means getting a result. No giving a guy an extra week who's just come in the door. Anybody that's come in should be in the door within the next couple of weeks. I think maybe last week, probably, ideally, you have your targets, your targets in, but we all know how Celtic carry on. I mean, that the insulting nature of the bids that they're giving out. I mean, there was a guy 6.9 million last week, and then there was Celtic fans jumping on the defence of the club saying it's ridiculous for the selling club to rate a guy at £15 million. No. That's that club's gift to rate him at that. It's Celtic's insult to come in with a bid half as much as what the club want. Don't go to the table and insult. Just leave the table altogether. So, and then again with a £1.5 million bid for a player who's supposed to be worth £5 million.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Another insult. I can't remember who it was.
What club was it? I'm trying to remember the.
I think Hingy was the. I think it was who was it? The chairman.
What market was it? Someone will come in with the chat. Carry on with your point, and we'll come back.
The point I was making was, I mean, again, there was defences made about the board in terms of, the club are asking for too much money. No, it's not about the club asking for too much money. It's about how we're coming in and bidding for these players, insulting these players. If you're an agent and you telling your player who's wanting to move to Celtic, look, this is how much they value you. This isn't a negotiation tactic. They're just lowballing and seeing how they can how they can get away with it. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Eagles. And I think there's a chairman or somebody within that club is a bit of a legend in football. I can't remember the guy's name. Mark Overmars, maybe.
Did he start there? The Go Ahead Eagles.
I
prefer the Mighty Ducks.
I think Mark Overmars is in amongst that club, boys. I think he's the one that's been speaking about Celtic. Well, he didn't mention Celtic, but we all know. But again, it's a game that these players, within that £1.5 million to £5 million market, boys, these guys aren't extremely difficult to buy. There isn't affordable. There isn't a tug of war between us and a top 3 team in the championship who's fighting for promotion. This is a fairly come and get me transfer as you can get. Celtic probably, if Celtic are at the table, chances are Celtic are probably leading the race, boys. Because the coach, the agent will say to a player like Celtic, they are Champions League hopefuls, you won trophies, blah blah blah. If Celtic weren't considered to be a viable option for this player, you don't go to the table, boys. You have the discussions first, and Celtic are probably in the front of the queue. So
Celtic will be talking to them for 3 years.
Well, probably. Well, I don't know if you heard. You might have heard Kieran Tierney during the week, there, boy, saying he said that he was the easiest player that Celtic have ever signed. Well, he took $100,000 a week pay cut, so I'm pretty sure it was pretty easy to deal with. But I thought to myself, it triggers something in my head. I thought to myself, that just shows you that if there was any doubt whatsoever in Kieran Tierney's head that he was going back to Celtic no matter what, we'd probably still be sitting and worried about who's going to be left back this season.
Oh yeah.
You know, maybe Sloop doesn't go to Norwich or whatever it is he's went to the day. Maybe he stays on. And this is the thing that the two biggest signings we've made, the two only signings we've made that I think that are viable first 11 players, Nygren, a guy on the last year of his contract, probably the club are
past 6 months.
Fast 6 months, boys. Probably get pushed out the door, right? Let's be honest, right? They're happy to take the money. And then a guy who we just spoke about, probably took a £4 million a year pay cut. And that's not exaggerating, boys. So you're probably talking.
No. I think he'd been 150 grand because he was in his second deal at Arsenal.
And there was talking of one something like 110 or 100 before that.
I think 150 would be realistic sort of guess.
I reckon you're maybe talking 35 grand a week at Celtic and 40 grand a week. Okay, there's probably a signing on bonus. I think that happens quite a lot in football. But
ginger bottles,
as he said, I think it was a message there, boys. I think he was telling the Celtic fans, you might have doubts about me going to Arsenal and the rest of it, but I've paid the Pied Piper. I've come back to this club. I have cost myself a lot of money, and I have. There's only I told you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's clever. So there's
only two in that negotiation, boys, on each side of the table. There's only been one side of that table that's bent their backwards to get him at Celtic, and that's been Kieran Tierney's camp. Probably to the anger of his agent, the anger probably some of his family who are probably saying to him, look, you've got Juventus, Everton, you've been at Celtic. I don't doubt that's been said to him. Go to move on, but he's probably like, I'm a Celtic boy, I'll come back. He's committed to Celtic 5 years.
His agent hates him.
What's that?
His agent won't like him.
Well, put it this way, boys.
No agent wants that for their client, because it's the less commission for them.
I guarantee you that any club who's got the ability to sign Kieran Tierney would have offered that boy a lot more money than Celtic did. Of
course.
Guaranteed. And I'm talking about maybe double the money, boys. I'm even talking an extra 10, 15 grand, talking about maybe double the money. And that all obviously elevates the agent's fees. And then Kieran Tierney said straight away, he went last as well the other day, I'm staying here. So that agent will be pissed off at that and all, because that's probably his last payday. After Kieran Tierney, probably get the odd Adidas.
His last payday, and it was about a third of what he thought he would have got if he went else. Now, see, when it comes to negotiations, San Fran Celtic's in. Great to have you on. Bhoycie Bus member for a long time, and always a pleasure to debate with you as well, San Fran. He's looked at the positives. You bid, unsettles the player, then you negotiate. Good business. What if your bluff's getting called though, San Fran? Bid for the player, way below the mark. Player thinks, wow, you don't value me. Agent thinks, okay, now we have something concrete. I'll go whisper to the Dutch equivalent of Hugh Keevans or Mark Guidi or whatever. And now it's public. Yeah? That's how you end up with. That's how you end up with Adamida fees.
Yeah.
Right? So I know what you're saying, San Fran. If it was tunnel vision, unsettle the player, but no one else knows. But the fact we're discussing it right now on a forum that's not ITK, that tells you everyone knows. And if everyone knows, that means other clubs that might be interested pique their interest. It means the player might think, well, if I've got options, at least they look like they've got a drive to get me. That club does as well, because they've just came straight in with 4 million, say, more than double at Celtic. But the Celtic really want me. Where's their feature if they only value me at one? Or it's just a bidding war altogether. 4 or 5 interested clubs. Then the club who owns the contract holds the aces. I do like a positive spin on it, San Fran. But for me, looking at how many Celtic deals don't go through for players that cost substantial amounts in the Celtic sphere, but absolute chump change considering where Celtic are as a business model, every other aspect of their business, and considering where we're at in terms of transfer fees in 2025, I'm not convinced it works as simply as that one settle the player, you then renegotiate it and get it for good business, because it doesn't happen enough for that to be a tried and tested formula that Celtic would be using.
And as well, boys, you see that you've got a board here who are totally disengaged for the fan base. The board can't be affording to let stories be going public and then not getting this player. When it goes public, Celtic want a player and they don't get him, the fan base are incredulous.
So San Fran's saying it was a month ago. Sorry to cut you off, Matt. Just so he's got his right to reply, mate. That's the only reason I'm doing that. And he's saying the bid was a month ago. That's why it's public knowledge, San Fran. Agent talk, interested parties talk knowledge, I'm going to always surmise would be way, way sooner than the public knowledge bit. So that's, again, just to counter what you're saying, again, nothing too deep, San Fran, just debating the point.
Well, and the thing is as well, look, if that was last month, Celtic were either interested or no. Why has there not been a second or third bid? You know what I mean? So you don't go in there and say there's a £5 million player. We want him. The manager wants him. He fits into your system. Okay, we'll bid £1.5 million. We'll insult the club. If they say no, we'll walk away from the table. I'm not entirely sure that's good business policy.
That would be strange, wouldn't it?
Imagine going to a market. Imagine going to Turkey for you mentioned Turkey, go to a market and saying there's a towel there. I'm going to ask for £3. It's worth £10. I'll offer £3. And they say no. You go, okay, walk away. They say, okay, I'll give you a £5 then at least. that is bad negotiation. You always obviously see the thing is, see a negotiation, boys. See when there's two companies that are bidding and the millions of pound stake, it involves lawyers and solicitors and all this, right? So both of these people will talk and they'll know there'll be an acceptable bid. They'll be speaking, or there'll be somebody sitting at a computer going that they hit £5 million and somebody else gets the email. They'll be speaking in between, boys. They'll know what's acceptable. They'll know what's not acceptable. And you'll find a compromise within yourself.
If there's been a month gap as well, Mark.
Aye.
If that is the case, and I've got no reason to doubt San Fran saying that bid was a month ago, that must be dead in the water then, because you don't just leave it for a month.
It must be, but
because that would be another example of going, if I have the player going, sorry, what happened there? But like we said, we used quotes last week, if you remember, in the T.N.F, with 2 different examples. A player that was at Slovan Bratislava who could not believe his move didn't go through because of a fee, because it looks like Celtic, the same as every other club, by the way, I've done direct talking with said player's agent and said, look, this is where he'll feature in our plans. He's got his hopes up, and then it's fell apart with the club-to-club side of things. He's talked publicly about it, and so did the Legia Warsaw sporting director, chairman, whoever it may have been, about these things. So, I think when I see this stuff, I don't think there's enough examples of it always being like a winning formula for Celtic. And as I say, the quotes that we used last week made it seem like actually it seemed out of the ordinary how Celtic did transfer business. Now, many will point to, we'll look at the money we generate for players, the model that Rangers are essentially maybe trying to copy, sort of, you use as a template. And that tells you the success. But, you can also look to results in a park, over 20 years and what development we've seen of Celtic as a force out with domestic bliss. And that doesn't point to the most successful transfer strategy or model that I've ever seen in my life either, because we're a rare entity where we we've failed to win a knockout round in Europe in 21 years, despite 21 out of those 21 years having European football opportunities in some form or other. Like, unlike many clubs who might have similar records, they've not actually been at any table, let alone the top table or the playoff table for the Champions League or group stage. They've not been at any of those, so that they could potentially be over 2 decades without a knockout. But to have been in Europe all those years and have that as a record, I think is damning. And I don't think that speaks highly of our transfer strategy that's as successful or model that as some make out. But certainly as the Celtic board pat themselves on the back for.
I don't think your model was great, Bhoycie. I think we've had the benefit of European football. That elevates players' value at Celtic, you know what I mean? But we've also had our Rangers been out the league. We've also had our Rangers been in an utter state, went from one disaster to another. And that does play a part in how successful Celtic have been. To what degree, you can argue about to the cows come home, but that has played a part in how successful Celtic have been. Okay? And we feel lucky to have Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou, who did good jobs and got the very, very best they could do at the players they had. But that aside, anytime we've struck gold and got a couple of good players, we've sold them and started to downgrade the following season. And it's happened time after time. We've not got a model where we're seeing a group of players and we're seeing the next one on the ladder. Okay, Riley's out. Okay, we'll bring in Nigrin 12 months later. You know what I mean? Kyogo goes in January. We'll try and find somebody in August. It doesn't work that way, boys. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way, and that isn't a recruitment strategy that works. I think if you look at the core of that team, which is beginning to win, it's been the core of the team that quite frankly, that Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers before him built. We're still seeing Tony Ralston being the backup. We're still seeing James Forrest being the hallelujah at the end of the season. We're still seeing Callum McGregor pulling the strings. We're still seeing Greg Taylor, who's just left the building. We've seen again Kieran Tierney into save the day. We're still seeing Angie's defence. And we're still seeing Angie's strike force on its day. If it's your best three, it would include Jota and Maeda. So that, we're no strengthening on, even strengthening aside, even if you take strengthening aside, the recruitment out with the strengthening has been ridiculous as well. I mean, we gifted Brendan Rodgers in his first season back 9 players, and except for Bernardo, everyone's been chased out the club, and that's the biggest indicator that you can imagine that one, Brendan Rodgers didn't sign off on them, and two, they weren't at the level. And even worse than that for me is the board don't seem to realise that they're making the same mistakes over and over again. I mean, all right, cool. Ian Moura came in and Brendan Rodgers was surprised by how good he was. That wasn't a Brendan Rodgers signing. That guy could have just easily been another Quan. Just could do easier been another Tilio. Just as easy, boys, you know what I mean? And listening to a pod last week, 2 weeks ago, and the boy was talking, he was saying, at these up in Ireland, we've got 6 signings. Last year we only had 1. No, I don't count third choice backup keepers as a signing for the first team. I don't count a non-professional playing footballer, Osmond, as a viable option for Celtic. You know what I mean? These guys are just coming to replace the dross that's left, that young boy that went to West Ham.
The recruitment does seem replacement driven as opposed to strengthening from within. Or looking at something good. Could that look better than what it is right now? See if you've got a shiny area of the park. We never look, Mark, to go, I want it a wee bit shinier. We go, well, what aspects of it could we rust it a bit and then just get it back to like a basic shine? You know what I mean? Rather than going, let's top that up. Let's put cherry on the top of the cake, on the icing on the cake, in that area. We don't do that. And I know we're bound by certain financial stuff, but you would like to see just certain examples of it in some areas. There's a lot of points to get through, Mark. So I do want to involve the chat as well, because that is always important. I mean, we'll go with this one straight away from Danny Hardy. Capitals aren't necessary, Danny, but I like your enthusiasm, mate. Good to have you on the bus. Danny Hardy, number 1, by the way. He says, Celtic are champions. We are going for 14 out of 15 titles. Facts. And we will spend another 25 million before the end of August. Not a fact. Fans want everything yesterday. Not true. Tough. Let's get behind Brendan for one more season. Well, there's a couple of things on that, Danny, I'd love to chat with you about, and I appreciate you commenting because this is what the T.N.F's all about. I think the 14 out of 15 titles is a remarkable record. I do think, if you're to believe the media, if we're fair here, on numerous occasions since the second incarnation of Rangers came into the SPFL, back in the league, whatever you want to call it, nobody cares, right? Imagine having that as a debate. Imagine having that as your club like that to be a debate. That's how low it is, right? But you'd be forgiven for thinking we were up against a decent rival. You'd be forgiven for forgetting that once we won a league when they were in a Europa League final and we only beat on that in penalties. You'd be forgiven for thinking they've had a manager in charge in Gio Van Bronckhorst who'd won, Eredivisie titles over in Holland with a very decent pedigree that we managed to see off. You'd be forgiven for all these things kind of getting put. I think Philippe Clement, 3 Belgian titles with 2 clubs. Again, these leagues are above the SPFL standard. Do you know what I mean? In terms of impressive on a CV, they rank far higher. We've came up against all that, and we have done superbly well, Danny, to win 14 out of 15. I don't know whether we will spend another 25 million before the end of August comes from. I think the only way you ever see money like that spent would be with a guarantee that we've got the group stage football. I think your argument on here, Danny, which, to be fair, you've not brought to the table, but I would just, because you've said end of August, for me, Celtic have the funds there to speculate, to accumulate, and also to save a perilous coefficient position that they're currently in, which you might not be aware of, which is fine. But Celtic's unique European coefficient position right now is damning and not good, and going to cost us a hell of a lot of opportunities at Europeans' top table going forward if we don't maximise chances that we're afforded like this playoff round. So 25 million before the end of August. What about before the Champions League playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
What about before that? Because that's not just about the windfall you get in a single season from the Champions League. That's about safeguarding or trying to salvage your European status coefficiently wise. I think that's really important. It's not about wanting everything yesterday. I don't think that's fair. I think it's about actually having one eye on the future. And it's about us forecasting where Celtic will be in terms of European standing if they don't get through these playoffs. So it's about going, how are you going to have players embedded for these crucial fixtures in European terms if they're not in very, very soon? Then before the end of August, those fixtures could be played, or at least one of them played. Then what? So I think these sides were important in terms of getting behind Brendan for one more season, Danny, of course.
That's a bit of strange, man, Bhoycie. I think there's good points in amongst some bad points, I think, or at least I think that there's always a kind of black and white when it comes to Celtic fans, where you can be either harsh or you can be far too lenient on the club or the board as such. I don't think the Celtic board have treated Celtic's recruitment with any sort of respect. The Champions League, you mentioned quickly there how important that is. We will say goodbye to 5, 10, 5, 6 million pound players for a long time unless we get our act together in Europe. And I mean now. This is so important. So why we don't have to gamble on the qualifiers, Bhoycie. We've got the money in the bank just now. Even if you think Celtic woke up with no money this morning, they still get £17 million for Kuhn, and they still get almost £5 million roughly for Frimpong. Plus we get
10 million for Kyogo in January.
And we also get a couple of loan fees, a few £100,000 for some loan fees, and I think we get £4 million or something like that from Mikey Johnson. Or whatever it is. And Bernabei is after that same amount of cash you're talking about. So we don't need to sell. We've just sold our season tickets. We're selling Adidas kits that there's near the Mora. There's money in the bank and there's fucking tons of it, shit tons of it. So I don't get why we have to wait to the end of August and see this pretense that the big teams will date at the end of the window because the big players want to go at the end of the window. That's all I shite, boys. Say almost every single.
Look at the window right now. Look at the window right now. It doesn't transpire like that whatsoever.
No, the big players know in January where they're going in July, boys. Trust me. There's nothing up in the air. You know what I mean? If there's a bidding war, the bidding war's over very quickly. I mean, that's why your Real Madrids and all the rest of it, they get players in and they're there for the full pre-season. They don't arrive 5 weeks into the season. You know what I mean? They arrive as early as possible. If you ask any coach in world football, when do you want to get your players in? The last day of the window or the first day of the window? Every single one will say the first day, boys. The club, Celtic, try and save themselves wages. They try and save themselves. They think that Celtic think they're the only person that's clever in the room. I will wait till the last couple of days. The selling club will get panic. We'll panic and we'll reduce the fee. Well, how many times have we been stung with that? We've been stung with that so many times. You mentioned a guy earlier on, I forget the guy's name. He said he was unsettled because of last year. He spent 2 weeks in a bit of a zone because he was supposed to go to Celtic and Celtic never paid the money.
Yeah, it was the Slovan Bratislava striker.
There you go. That, I mean, that's affecting that other boy's career. You know what I mean? He's made up for it now, but plus, could he have won as a treble? Possibly. Who knows? I think anybody came into that first team could have won as a treble. Although the big boy at Aberdeen who tried to end Hatate's season did enough to stop us winning that treble, to be honest. But I'm just saying, like, it's not always black and white. I mean, there's Celtic fans within their rights to moan about the club was spending their money 110%. Is there reasons why the Celtic fans are pissed off 110%? Because we've been here before. We don't need to sell. We should. The money we're want to spend is there just now, Bhoycie. We're in a situation where we've got a derby match within 2 weeks of the season starting. We've got a Champions League qualifier within 3 weeks of the season starting, and a qualifier that we can't afford to slip up in. If there's any more reason for Celtic to press a button earlier than that, I don't know what it is, Bhoycie. Our season tickets were sold out. Well, the deadline was a day or two after last season finished, Bhoycie. And the reason why the club did that, because
Of course.
Celtic fans' only bargaining power, their only hand Celtic fans have got, is the fact that we buy the tickets. And if we were at that stage just now without the season tickets being sold, Celtic fans have got a lot
released.
Yeah.
If there was a released, like up for sale, of course it would, and that's why they get it in early. I get you.
You get my money when you get my money. When you start spending money, you get my money. Celtic in the last 3 seasons have ensured that's not going to become a factor anymore because the deadline, and then we'll go this pretend. The Celtic fans, the Celtic board, I hate saying the word Celtic because the club is still the same club I love, Bhoycie. The people that are running it, they're the animals, right? So I'm going to try and keep on saying the board now. The board love the fact that they think I'm scared that if I don't buy my season ticket, somebody behind me is going to buy it, and it's like a big, massive waiting list, and we're not all that important because we'll be churning out fans will just keep buying everything and all the rest of it. I don't think that's the case, Bhoycie. I think the tarpaulin will be back on that top tier. The drop of a hat, the first sign of trouble at Celtic. We've seen the Sharks. We've seen that waiting list that is £10 to join, Bhoycie. I don't think translates to 10, 15,000 people sitting with £800 ready to spend it. I really don't think it does, Bhoycie. I think at the time there's been goodwill and good natured and they want to go and support Celtic. I don't think it always translates to the situation being the same. You know, the club would like me and you to be scared to the fact that they don't need me particularly. They need somebody in the chair. They don't need me. You know what I mean?
They're running down the generations, mate. This is what I keep saying.
And I wonder. So just very quick, sorry, boys.
Please. On you go.
I wonder if there's a new generation of fans who we always assume that the young boys under the age of 25, 30 are just spoilt fans, right? And they just want this, that, and the other. Are they the ones that have become so accustomed to Celtic just letting them down that they became patient?
What's the word, Mark, you always use?
Aye.
Conditioned.
We're conditioned, Bhoycie.
The generations that come through, they believe the ceiling is this domestic bliss, which we keep hammering at. So they're going, well, what more do you want for us? Because Europe's a pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
So the further away the likes of the judge gets from being around in that memory, the older you get, essentially, the better for the club. The more, you can be disillusioned. But there's 10,000 folk in a waiting list right now of the young pups who aren't disillusioned with this version of Celtic and they think we're all moany bastards. And that's the board's perfect storm, to be fair with you.
Yeah.
And do you know what? In that essence, their business model absolutely fucking works. Absolutely.
It works 100%. until the first road bump, Bhoycie. See the first road bump, and then I start to look at where the actual source of frustration is. But by God, it blows up.
Because once the domestic bliss is then sacrificed, that's what they can't. That is the truth, and that's a great point. It's a risky. It's just a stupid game. All we're talking about is sport and a club back in the sporting element of that set of the business to the maximum of its potential. I don't believe they do. Anyway, we've got loads of comments on it. We kind of talk about it every single week, Mark. So I don't want to go too far. But I know exactly what you're saying. Look, this is an interesting one for Jim Dolan. Always good to have you on the bus. In fact, no, I had one up, didn't I? Martinez, but how many quality signings will we make for Mark? Then we'll go into Jim's. For me, I'll be honest. I'd be happy with another 2 first-team players. I think with the likes of, say, Austin Trusty as an example. I would like to think he'll be a better version of Austin Trusty this year. I would like to think the 6 million Celtic paid for Austin Trusty was a 6 million more leaning on Brendan's wishes and the boards. When it comes to football and judgment, who do I trust the most? Brendan, right? So I would like to think he'll get that persistence as well. And he might be a better version of himself. I'd like to think Adam Ida, if I'm going to be consistent in my points with Adam Ida, is I think he was fucking way short at times last season because he didn't have that opportunity of pre-season. Does he need absolutely supplemented? Yes. So in terms of quality signings, I think Brendan made it clear he wants a winger. That is undeniable for me, that we need another wide player. I think another striker as well. We've got KT to replace GT. Fucking hell. KT, GT. And other than that, I do think the midfield, again, I think we'll have a better version of Luke McCowan in there. We're thinking a lot of plus points last season. It's easy to scrutinise where there maybe was a game, but Luke McCowan at times when he started games, I think people forget was part of 4 or 5 changes. Not him coming in as just the one switch to a starting lineup. I think he might look a lot slicker then. I'm very confident that he'll be a better version of himself. I think as well, if they're going to be quality, I would trust us to, rather than spread bet on it, I would rather be just harnessed in or honed in, I should say, on, I think 2. 2 would do me. How many do I think we'll make? I think we'll probably get 1 that's of the 10 million mark. Or 8. Let's say between 7 and 12. That's probably a better radius. I think we'll get 1 of those, and I think we'll get 2 more that are definitely paraded as first teamers, and then we'll find out where they're at. And hopefully, fingers crossed, of course, they will be of the quality that you're referring to, Mark. Over to you.
I don't think we'll spend any more than 3 or 4 million combined, boys. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think we'll get a loan towards the end of the window, and I think we'll get a striker for about 3 or 4 million, and then we might get another wee squad pad, as you mentioned there. I hope I rang Bhoycie, but I just, even the players we're being linked with just now is all 1s and 2 millions and all the rest of it, and the fact that we're haggling over £1.5 million for players worth 5 million, and a token gesture for a guy worth 50 million, we're bidding 6.5. I think there's any real desire to spend daft, and I don't think it is daft spending, to be honest. I think we'll spend a few million, if I'm being totally honest with you. It doesn't mean the player we bring in isn't going to impact the first 11. I mean, it's a £3-4 million striker, maybe is probably.
I'll give you a great example of it. A great example of it would be someone like, if you remember, I know it's going back a bit, but he seemed underwhelming at the time, and it was Magic Zaravsky. From a league that's let's be honest, comparable league, who came in. But what was Zaravsky was at his peak, his powers. If you remember, he was 28.
Mm-hmm.
Not a project, but he was only 2 million. You thought, where are we going here? Is this like?
I think we're going to
see someone like.
I think Shin. We call him
Yamada.
I think you might find it's called Shin, but you're right.
Shin, is that right?
I think they use their first name. I think they use their Shin will be.
They're probably just making it easier for us. They're probably like,
Well, saying that, no, hang on. Yamada's mere letters, so they might use fucking Yamada because they'll be like
Celtic will definitely. Aye, 150 a letter, £2 a letter. But just call him Benegur of Shin.
Big Shin.
What's the chances? There's another Benegur of, honestly. You wouldn't believe it, guys.
I'm going to bother. Listen, see if I see in Celtic, it's not always about the pounds and pennies for me.
Of course.
See if I've seen a guy in the Dutch league and he scored like 16 goals last season instead of getting for £4 million. For me, that's a victory. I'd rather we did that and spend £9 million on somebody who's maybe a Norwich third choice striker for talking's sake. So it's not about that for me. It's about, like this guy Shin. I seen his goals and my first instinct was, that's Kyogo. That just looks like Kyogo. No, he's appearance, just his body shape.
Yeah.
He's nipping in. And I think he's pretty strong. I think he holds the block really well. And I thought, if I know already got that, I need that. But I think he can do a bit of both. So, but I still think he's another striker, which kind of spells a bit.
This is a third striker you're about. No offense, I think you might need it. This is almost the conditioning taking over us. Of course, he wants a third fucking first choice striker. Let's be fucking real here. This is Celtic now. Us dinosaurs, me and Mark, who we're even now going, I think he'd probably want a third choice striker. You're having a fucking laugh. Of course he does. That's bang, basic, par for the course.
We're being spoiled, Bhoycie. We're being spoiled because we're thinking. I don't know why we're thinking that. We've not a second choice left back apart from Sloop in 2 seasons. We've not a second choice striker since January. We've not a number 10 since last August. You know what I mean? We've sold three wingers and only got.
So the praise we give for Celtic, if you want to call it praise, right, is a recruitment. It's about replacement.
It's no good. It's terrible.
We're not even doing the replacing bit.
We're even doing it. The only one you can see, the only position I can say Celtic have done, I think, the best they can do, slightly.
Tierney.
Well, I'd probably say the keepers, because I think we've got 2 first choice keepers, and we'll probably go a fairly adequate backup in Duhan or Bain before that. I think
play devil's advocate though. See, Sinisolo comes in and Schmeichel doesn't, right? And Sinisolo, because you've just said there, Sinisolo, you think's a number 1 potential.
No, we've got 2 number 1s, I think.
2 number 1s you've just said, right? So say Sinisolo had came in without the Schmeichel factor and was the number 1, and then there's a couple of moments. That signing is not. That is
yeah.
And I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I'm just playing devil's advocate to the. I think Sinisolo, not because I'm not questioning one bit of his ability here, by the way, not in the slightest. I just think the Prism could be viewed differently without that Schmeichel cushion, and I do get the vibe again with the Schmeichel move is not a Celtic production.
No, but
that's a phone call.
Rodgers.
It's.
And I think to be honest with you, I think it's been a Joe Hart. Joe Hart's spoken to him. I think Joe Hart's met him there during the Euros. There, you remember those photographs? He tried to tell me he's not said, "You still free?" I'm just left Celtic. What a fucking place that is. Of course he has, Bhoycie. There's been a conversation there. You had to be naive not to think there's been a conversation there. But I just think, but Schmeichel is there. I get your point, but Schmeichel is there, and I think I'm the most. I'll rephrase it. I'm the most comfortable, probably, with the keep position, and probably, not because just I'm a big fan of Ralston, I probably think right back is probably an area that I'm not too fussed about. I trust Arthur Johnson most games. The derby matches, I think he's a bit of a loose cannon, but I trust him, and I trust if we needed a 5-6 game spell that Ralston steps in, I wouldn't be concerned too much. And then I think if we had all that through the park, I think we'd be a bit more calmer. So. But the fact is, we just mentioned it. We've got 1 left back for the not for the first time in 2 seasons. We've only got 1 left back.
Is Inamura now?
Well, but this is the thing that's confusing me because the boy had never ever played football as a left back before, not even 1 minute. We've turned him in there, and Rodgers has been a bit surprised. That wasn't the plan, Bhoycie.
There's no way take that on board. I really do.
I don't think the balls went like that.
Yeah.
Here, by the way, I don't think Nicholas has went like that. What? By the way, I think that big boy can play left back and all. Rodgers has brought him in and says, we'll give him a shot, we'll see how he goes. And it could well be the case that Inamura is playing right back against James Forrest every week in training just now. And I could probably look decent. James Forrest probably takes a long time to get up to his stride at his age in pre-season, Bhoycie, let's be honest. So he probably looks half decent. Give him a game at Pittodrie, a game at Tynecastle, a game at Ibrox, a game in the Champions League qualifiers, and we'll see what level that boy's at, you know what I mean? And I hope he passes it with flying colours. In fact, I hope we don't get to see that.
I've still got a lot of faith that James Forrest is a real option, not just this. And we've got two wingers and Forrest. I don't like the, not from yourself, but I think it's framed now and it's all based on age. Listen,
I look at
the best fucking clubs, mate. The best teams I could think of in my lifetime sporting football. The best of the best. I'm talking about the elite. Then I think of the best Celtic teams in my lifetime. They've always, Mark, always had players 33, 34 plus as part of their very much in and around. This is not token appearance money for Lubo Moravchik at 35 under O'Neill in his first 2 seasons. No, it wasn't. It was a Lubo at 36 who left, who we tried to keep for another year because he was still involved. I'm not saying James Forrest is good. I think domestically now, when I look at the level of opposition around us domestically, Forrest is just as lethal in terms of what he could do, because I think the strength in opposition was far higher when Lubo was at Celtic. Yeah, I still think it's relative. I look at the best Milan teams, Barcelona, Man U. You could just quickly name off guys 35, 36 plus. It happens, mate. I think we need to move on. I think Forrest, if we can handle, as you rightfully say, the pre-season stuff, and we could see a body that doesn't fail him as routinely, sadly, as it has been niggling injuries. I think if he's available for every fixture, I would love to see what maybe a 2.0, maybe even now we're into the 3.0 phase of James Forrest could look like in terms of what he can do in the side. Because I do still think the quality that he's got on the ball itself, his tactical nous, and his ethic of how to be a team player are traits that aren't going anywhere.
100%. The only thing for me is it can't be if he's the first choice winger in that side, then the recruitment's failed, Bhoycie. I think that's
fair. I think if he's in the third choice bracket, I'm actually not as concerned as others.
I don't think that I don't think you write him off as not being a choice. I think that's a bit disrespectful to a guy who's won so much and the rest of it. So you don't write him off, of course you don't. But I do think that a priority should be replacing Nicholas Kuhn. I think that should be
100%.
And I don't mean like a token gesture. I'm talking about properly 7, 8, 9, a level of player that a level of player that you've dipped into the market where they've had the 2-3 seasons of development and now it's on to the next level. Celtic bypassing. So you get your £1, £2, £3 million players who are at a stage in their career and Celtic take them to the next stage. I want Celtic to bypass that stage and get him when he's ready to play European football, Bhoycie. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just bypass that stage, pay the extra £2-3 million and get them at the stage where Celtic are normally ready to sell. You know what I mean? But to a lower degree in terms of outgoings.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. No, I hear you on that. I'm going to move on because I just want to get through as much as I can. I'm sorry for cutting
go ahead, mate. I'm just rabbing on a lot of shit.
No, you're not, mate. Never. Don't say that. Jim Dolan, he comes in and says, despite Rodgers saying we won't see Shin tonight, do you think we will see him get some minutes? Now, I don't see any benefit, Jim, and Rodgers saying we won't at this moment in time. If that's a quote that's genuine, that he said we won't see him tonight, then I don't think we will. I think more importantly, though, is he a player that does have that time mark to do what Inamura's done and do pleasantly surprise the manager? Let's be real as well. There's far more investment being made in Shin, and he's even a couple of years beyond Inamura. I think when the links first occurred, we thought it was a young hotshot. It turns out he's 25. He's got the profile. I mean, I know what Rodgers was talking about. It's amazing how we had a template for it in Didier Gat, where it was his pace, power, determination, and all these traits were like he was the maverick almost in that team. If you look at it, he was the one in isolation because all the rest were technically, in terms of the front two areas of the park, midfield to front, were so good, Mark, right? See our physical players up front, Hartson and Sutton, were technically brilliant, right? That is the reality. Agat was your wild card, if you like, right? Because he was the pace, power, and then the football was kind of secondary. And we're still working on crossing with him. He's 28 years old. We're still just trying to fine tune like how we put, right? But because of these physical attributes, you've seen the benefit. I think now a lot you see in football, and a lot of ex-players now say it, the technical traits seem to be secondary even in the top leagues, Mark. When you're actually looking at players now signed even at the top bracket clubs, that is fine-tuning their technical traits, but actually because they've got that blistering pace, that energy, they're sort of, just as important now. Whereas before it'd be technique by miles would be ahead, footballing sort of IQ miles ahead. Then, fucking hell, they're fast as anything, they're strong, they're winning beep tests. That's your icing on the cake. Yamada sounds like to me he's got all these technical attributes that I think a lot of clubs are looking for in a player. Then it'll be what can he do under the Brendan Rodgers school of apprenticeship, if you like, at Celtic to improve the other aspects to his game. I think he's got 3 weeks right now to get himself right in the mix for how important or how unimportant he's going to be in these massive fixtures in the Champions League.
I think he plays. I think he's come in. I'm not entirely sure he's come in as number one choice in terms of Brendan Rodgers' mindset, but I think he's come in terms of the club. I think they're going down the board. I think they think he's a viable option, and that's why they spent a couple of quid on him. Not much, but a couple of quid. And for what I've seen on the videos, he looks like he can score goals. He's a pretty poor season this season, or was it last season, depending on that.
No, current season. I think his current season in the J League, I think he's on 4.
That's it. That's quite strange. The timeline always confuses me. But it looks like he's a handful, Bhoycie, and he's faster than Maeda. I've seen that he's faster than Maeda, and you go, fuck me.
We'll fucking see about that. We'll see about that. Maeda's not in the J League right now. Remember.
Well, this is true. Maybe he was the fastest in the J League.
We'll see.
Well, Rodgers said last season that the fastest player, according to the stats in the club, is James Forrest still. So maybe he's not as fast as Forrest. You know what I mean? But I think he's going to offer us something different. I think he will get game time. I think my feelings on either aside, I think the club, the fan base, and the manager's crying out for something different up front, Bhoycie. And I don't think it's just new. It's Adam either. This boy, looking at the videos, is going to offer us something different, another choice. And I also think that Johnny Kenny might also provide that for us. What was I saying there?
So we've got Ida's starting, the team's out, Yamada, Shin, as Mark wants to call him, is not in the subs. No, like I was saying. So I didn't say any reason for him to lie, but he's got the opportunity. He's got the opportunity over the next few weeks to get himself in the mix for that. And again, these wild card sort of players, we've only need to look at the impact of Maeda recently. But again, we look at some like Kwon, I think's joining Nantes, and I know people seem to think like, oh well, one of those things. This was a guy who said he was envisioning like being the best player in Scotland. Remember? When he first joined, he was going to be the best. He was going to be the best player in the country with a view to he didn't play one competitive game for Celtic, and he was a Kwon, all right, a Kwon artist.
Well, I was a belter, but I seen another take on it. It's a fucking cracker. See, to be fair to him, he said he came in and got moved to a top 5 league. He did. He just didn't play football, but he fucked off to League One.
I know. Look at this now. Look, San Fran Celtic. Have you been watching the show or not? He says, sorry, Yamada is in the subs under Shin. Listen to what Mark's been telling you all night, San Fran. He wants to be called Shin.
I think in their culture, like Dyson Maeda's name is
Dyson.
So you see to the back of his top, it says Dyson. His Japan shirt is what his Rio says.
He's been looking for Mark's tried to tell us that he's going to be called Shin. So Shin is on the bench. So just ignore that last couple of minutes. And Brendan Rodgers is a liar as well, because we just confirmed that.
Oh, well,
in answer to your question, he says we won't see Yamada tonight. If he did say that, then he is just a big liar, Jim.
Did you see that Balikwishe? Did you see his injury record, Bhoycie? Did you see that?
No.
I find it very quickly. I sent it to my dad very, very quickly. I don't burst out laughing. Right, okay.
Oh, yes, someone did tell me this.
So 2024-25, muscle injury, 21 days. 24-25, muscle injury, 57 days. 24-25, torn thigh muscle, 127 days. 23-24, knee surgery, 49 days. 22-23, muscle injury, 44 days. 22-23, torn thigh muscle, 59 days. 21-22, hip injury, 33 days. 21-22, hamstring injury, 19 days. And seemingly there's 3 more pages of that.
That's every time Celtic have shown interest in him. That's how long the negotiations go on, and then he realises we're not actually going to pay for him. He's like, bastard, right back to work it is. You know?
So That just shows you, because last season, this time, we're trying to sign him. In all the 365 days of the year, he's missed roughly 200 of them for injury. So maybe he's just faking it because he wants a Celtic move. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what it is.
Alan Mockwa comes in. Great as always, Mark, to have you on the bus. I know you are a regular viewer, and I love that photo of the Golden Labrador. He reminds me of my old lab, Toby. So that was a brilliant photo, mate. I love that shit. I love Doug's. Doug's are sound, man. Apart from the one next door to Mark. I don't know if you've seen this, Mark. I'm going to try and find it in the old Google, right? Use 2 seconds. Didn't want my Google search history coming up, you know what I mean? It'll just be Wee Fellas Pod and all that, you know? Just a joke. Roma shirt away. Have you seen the Roma away shirt, mate?
Yes.
You have, because I think you commented on
it. 3 strips. And did you say Tim on it, or is that a wind-up?
I don't think it says Tim on it, mate. It's Riyadh Season. It's sponsored by...
Who?
It's sponsored by the Riyadh Season. I don't think it says Tim on it, mate. I mean, come on.
I've been done a kipper, but it looks cracking. It's a cracker.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
I think it's white with like.
Mate, all right, there we go. Right.
You got it?
I'm going to bring it up. Look at this, mate. Wait till you see this.
I like the badge. I like the badge on it.
The whole thing's an absolute. I've just bought it on DHgate for. I bought that in the Columbia sort of retro trefoil kit that they've got, like, you know, the one with the old school badge, like this. It's white with the Columbia badge, of course. I bought the 2 of them on DHgate, mate. Combined the postage £23.96.
Oh, there you go then.
Can you see it on the right?
I can see. Hang on.
Look at that.
That's fucking thing.
I know.
It's a cracker, mate. It's a cracker.
It's just beautiful, and I think with things like that.
That's
I know you've got your views. I feel it's the third kit. That's going to be Roma's third away kit. I just feel. I feel at times like we've been sold a wee bit of a dummy with this elite kit bracket Celtic are now involved in and stuff. Firstly, I've got 2 frustrations with it, right? I've got 2 frustrations, Matt. It was great promoting that. If I'm honest, from my point of view, maybe just a Celtic bias on my part, but it looks like one-way traffic. You get to promote yourself as, in the elite Adidas gang now, but definitely, just because I know Celtic, we're not paying you a dink more. In fact, it's probably less now, because if it's a record-breaking deal, we know what Celtic do. There is a new record-breaking kit merchandise deal being signed by Celtic. I don't blame Celtic when they achieve record-breaking sponsorship with Alphabet. That's how they announce it, you know. They don't need to announce all the facts and figures, but it's a record-breaking club record. That's not been announced, but Celtic have been elevated apparently by Adidas. It looks to me like Adidas want more for less. And then when it comes to, in my opinion, the jerseys that we've been offered, I'm not convinced. If we are in the elite band, I think there's another elite fucking level to go to. I still don't think we're getting the top tier. Wait, there is Tim apparently on it.
Is there Tim? I see things saying it was like
Tim is a mobile company. Smell the glove says Telecom Italia Mobile. It must be in the sleeves or something, because it definitely says
it's right along the front, boys. It was like
I'm sure it says Riyadh Season, does it not?
I don't know. Maybe they've got a different sponsor for away strips. That's quite clever if they have. Very Celtic. I'm surprised Celtic hadn't jumped on that bandwagon before.
Wow.
Cause there's a lassie advertising, a lassie and a guy advertising it.
I feel like I should have known more about this before I entered this debate. There was me.
I've been rang a lot of times in my life.
The one in DHgate probably says fucking Axel in the front. Do you know what I mean? I'm sitting there buying it.
Pushing the packet. It's quite lazy for us to say. We'll see a tap on Twitter and we'll go, and then the headline will be, "Look how easy this was." That's quite lazy. I want a unique strip made for Celtic, and I wanted to look in keeping with the club's history, but I wanted to still look fresh, innovative in 2025. No 20 rehashes of 2022 kits. You know what I mean?
I knew. Ryan T says, "Yep, theirs is the elite tiers. There is an A+, etc." I knew
there is because we're on.
I knew there must be. Elsewhere, yep, we are the shit leaver. I swear I didn't know any of that.
New because we've got this elite brand new. We can sell the kits for £120 now. That's the other side of it. And I think Adidas. I think Adidas is probably, in my lifetime, I've only seen Umbro, Nike, New Balance, Adidas. Adidas are probably at the bottom of that list in terms of quality and appearance in terms of the kits we've had out in Bhoycie. Might not be in top of the list when it comes to how much money Celtic have made, but I think Celtic are probably getting took to the cleaners and all, because every Monday you're getting new kits, new travelling range, training range, new fucking things for your dog to wear.
You can't help but feel like it's getting rammed down your throat a bit. And I do think as well, it's because you're instantly combining it with, where's my news on a first team signing of substantial sort of expenditure. That's why it does come over worse. It comes over worse. I just want to leave on a positive note as well. It's not about the comment, because we have discussed money enough now that Celtic is sweet. But Alistair Jack, look at that, man. A member for 31 months. So a massive shout out to Alistair and everyone else who has been sticking with us all that time. We are going to round it up there, but I can rest assured the bus is going nowhere. We'll be back more active. As I say, there's probably more activity for us to talk about. But as we do it, will be sporadic shows. Please hit the bell button if you want to catch it live. If you're happy just catching up, cool. Don't worry about it. It makes no odds. Remember, there is membership options like Alistair's used for 31 months. No pressure on that either. All the content will remain free. The judge will be familiar with you. He'll be here every Thursday. All right? He'll be here every fucking Thursday doing the T.N.F. way Bhoycie. And then, as I say, once the activity picks up, hopefully in the transfer market first and foremost, then obviously we've got the fixture list piling up. There'll be far more. You'll see a lot of Jonathan on the bus and things like that as well. And probably my silly cooking, maybe have the hair back to where it was when we started by then as well. You never know. You never know. So Oasis season, I suppose. Judge, anything you want to finish on before we go?
No, I'm all good, mate. I hope Celtic get what they want out of tonight's match. The
Need a derby win.
A derby match. Is it on telly at all? Is it any?
I'll find it on my legal stick.
Oh, of course.
I will.
It's amazing. Thanks for tuning in, folks. That's all I want to say. And
etc.
I was going to say something else, but
listen, we're out of here.
Up the bra.
Push up bra.
Push up.